Hoy me acompaña John Carroll Lynch, que interpreta a Rick Legarski en Big Sky, una de las series que estarán disponibles en Star, la nueva sección de Disney Plus. So, John, first of all, I wanted to ask you, what appealed you the most about Legarski and about the show before you signed to be a part of it?
It was a wonderful opportunity to join forces again with David Kelly, who's one of the legendary television writers, and the script was so good and the character was so fascinating that I was very excited to join the project.
And at the same time, Legarski can be disturbing and kind, but he doesn't seem like a lunatic. He's like he has a really focused moral compass in front of him. So right now, in a time in which there seem to be people who think that doing the moral thing is to go against the rules, how has it been to play a character like Legarski?
Well, I think there's a lot of moments in people's lives where they think that they know better than other people. And I certainly have done that myself. And oftentimes, more often than not, I've been wrong. And Legarski's point of view on what he's doing is quite heroic, and he's wrong. And that's the kind of journey that he's on. I also like the idea that he's not a lunatic. He has a sense of what he's doing, and he feels the costs of what he's doing. There's been a lot of characters that I've played that don't feel those costs because they've compartmentalized the damage or they've dehumanized the victims of their damage, whatever they were. Legarski is trying to clean up his little patch of road in Montana. That's his point. He's using the wrong tools.
Like everybody, when you're watching a show or in real life, nobody thinks that they are the villain of their own story, right? Everybody thinks that they are the hero.
I'm not sure if everybody thinks they're the hero of their own story. Some people think they might be the sidekick of their own story or the victim of their own story. There's a lot of that. But there's very few people who think they're completely wrong. They're doing something specifically for evil. And the other thing about it is human evil, which is what we suffer from most, usually has to do with selfishness, self-centeredness, anger, revenge, retribution, the desire to hurt someone because it feels good that they hurt more than you do. And that's really the basis of pretty much everything that's happening when it comes to human evil. There are very few people who think to themselves, I'm going to, take over the world in this way. There are megalomaniacs, certainly, but they're few and far between. Most people are just cruel.
And about that, I think that the fact that Legarski is an state trooper in a time in which, especially in the US, but in all the world, there is a really intense climate about police brutality. Do you think that as an actor, that it changed the way that you approach a character within a power position, in a position of abuse of that power, than if you would have played that character like 20 years ago?
I had the good fortune when I was working on another cop show to work with a SWAT officer as our technical advisor. And we talked about lethal force, which is what we in the United States give over to the police. That's not true everywhere, of course. The authority of lethal force is not given to every police department in the world, but it is given to the United States police departments. And in giving someone lethal force, they have to make a series of decisions every day that I don't have to make. And one of the decisions, every decision is tainted with this thought, which is, I'm going home to my family today. That's true. And we have to figure out how to remove all of the biases that make that choice that make people choose that choice so abruptly, so without thought. Anything that takes away from the conscience of that thought, the consciousness of that thought, is really what we should look at removing. For example, in the United States, people can go into state houses in many places and have long guns. They can have rifles on them. And how do you know whether or not that person who's carrying their rifle into a state house, who has every right to do that by the Second Amendment and every right to do that by the laws of that state, how does a peace officer know whether that person is exercising their First Amendment rights or is going to go in there and kill state representatives? How do they know the difference? I think that's the kind of thing we force on these officers all the time. And we also force those things on people who are coming to this either through generational relationships with their parents being police officers before them. They're oftentimes people who are looking for good paying jobs that provide union benefits. And they're also potentially looking to express their authority. And all of those things are quite dangerous relationships if they're not made consciously. And when you add systemic racism and the history of police in the United States, as in the South particularly, coming straight out of gangs that were Johnny rollers that were intended to enforce slavery and to bring back escaped slaves, they just rolled into police departments. I think we really should look at the history of it and try to be compassionate and holistic and understand and also enforce the laws on the books when it comes to police brutality. There should be no reason why George Floyd died. No reason. No reason why Breonna Taylor should have died. No reason why Eric Garner should have died. No reason why. And because they did, we need to look at why. What I don't understand about all of this is, shouldn't everything be put on the table? Shouldn't we just honestly look at everything? Because nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants the death of innocence, I don't think. We should look at the reasons why. And just really look at them as straightforwardly as we can. And stop defending anybody or anything that leads to that outcome. Anything that leads to the death of Breonna Taylor anything that can prevent that should be used to prevent that. That just makes sense to me, because nobody wants that woman dead. Nobody.
And linking all this with Legarski, I think that in mind is aware of.
Yeah. In later episodes, I think we get a sense of his relationship to this feeling and the feeling that we are persecuting police officers. I think a lot of police officers feel that way. And it's clear that Legarski is one of them. He feels persecuted for trying to enforce the law and feels as if he's powerless to do his job to some degree. I think he's wrong. As a person, I think he's wrong, but I can understand his point. And as actors, it seems to me that we're not supposed to be advocates for our characters. I think that's the wrong relationship. But we're supposed to tell the truth of those characters and let the audience decide how they feel about it.
So thank you so much, John, for granting me this time, and have a nice day. And I hope that everybody watches Big Sky.
I hope so too.
And has their own judgment about all this.